Niajeni Wase, welcome to another episode of the Utu Podcast. My name is Ashley and I'll be your host for today. We have two beautiful guests in studio with us. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Great. Thank you for having me. My name is Peter Rono, governance and PFM expert. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Angela Kioko, a community mobilizer, a community activist, a patriotic Kenyan, and an MP aspirant for the Nakuru Town West Member of Parliament seat in 2027.
Amazing, Angela. It's good to hear that there's a woman who wants to contest for the Nakuru West
There is
position. What's your experience so far?
I would say it's sweet and sour because the reception is good. You find a lot of support from the community. The community is open to change. They are open to having conversations on issue-based governance. But there's also a lot of gatekeeping from a lot of people who try to show you that this is a male-dominated area, or it's there are specific people who can be leaders, and it's not just for anyone. Somebody posted about me and said that mimi nadhania siasa ni kalongolongo. So there's a lot of gatekeeping within the political ecosystem of Nakuru Town West. But I would say it's a sour and sweet experience for me.
Interesting. I think, first of all, it's a good thing. I think
Thank you.
to venture into a space that it's not easy.
Yeah.
I can say so. You'll get a lot of that. But the engineer, I know, the resilient. There's nothing that is impossible.
Yeah.
We give it a try, then we see how it goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are things that look like barriers, but sometimes they are stepping stone to the great.
Yeah.
So Angie, 2027.
Yeah. I also feel in my bones that this is actually the right time, that the Gen Z politician, that's the name I use on social media, cannot miss the Gen Z revolution. Yeah.
Amazing. So we have this issue. The youth, they are at the forefront when it comes to political rallies. But when it comes to representation, it's rock bottom, I'd say, for lack of a better term. Do you think that's something that is actually going to change?
I think it will change, but it will take a long period, or change will happen gradually. Because when you're talking about young people, there are a lot of systemic barriers that actually hinder their full participation in governance and political processes, not only vying, but even voting. I also say that when you're talking about young people, there's a lot of blanket condemnation and narratives that are perpetrated by, I don't know who, I'd say the state, about young people, that also acts as barriers, and it kills the morale of young people. Like, for example, what the state was perpetrating before the Tukokadi campaign, that young people are not interested in registering for voters. Young people want to make noise, but they don't want to take part in the change. But through the Tukokadi campaign, young people were able to demonstrate that not only are they ranting on social media, but they're willing to go and take a step and mobilize themselves and their peers to register for voters. So I think when you talk about participation of young people, there are a lot of dynamics that you can look at. And when you're talking about even the enabling things that allow you to participate in politics, maybe elective politics in this sense, we're talking about money. And it's not only money for tokenism. Campaigns require logistics. Like, for example, Nakuru Town West has 6 wards. I have to move around the 6 wards. I have to do meetings, so I have to secure venues. That's not money for tokenism, but that's money for logistics for your campaigns. So that also, given the ecosystem of the Kenyan politics, that also in itself hinders or acts as a barrier for young people when it comes to how they're engaging in political processes. I would also say the intentionality of the leaders and political parties in terms of how they're engaging young people. And you see decisions are made in boardrooms, and young people just come and ratify decisions in meetings or in NGCs. Like, you saw what happened in ODM. They were asking person XX for this position, and they're raising their hand, and then the crowd makes noise and they're like, yeah, this person is now holding that position. But I'm sure they had a conversation prior to that NGC to decide who takes which position. And young people attended this other ratification event. So there are a lot of barriers, and there are a lot of hindrance for young people. But I would also say that I think young people are also showing that they cannot be underestimated and their voice needs to be on the table. Young people are organizing politically. We've been seeing them all over the country with the launching of the People Renaissance Party. I think I've seen a lot of young faces in that party. So I think young people are also taking up the mantle and trying to show that they're ready to take up leadership.
Yeah, picking up from where Angela left, I think this is a good concern that should concern all the young people. Like, up to when do we wait, given directions, and other than us being part of the conversation? I think the step that Angie has taken is fronting herself to vie for a political position, and by doing that, I'm sure there is quite a lot of people who are looking up to you, especially the young people, because they see possibly an opportunity to be able to tell or to agitate for their issues. So there are two things that I always look at when it comes to the issue of politics and young people. Number one, the way she has talked about the financial issue. So the finance, a great issue, considering right now unemployment is quite high, the rate. So every time a politician calls for a rally and we are promised something at the end of it all, we show up there. Because at the end of the day, we know that we are going to receive something because we don't have work. Then another thing is also what goes behind the scenes, especially for you to run as a political aspirant, the way Angie has mentioned. Quite a lot of people want to vie, but they don't know the mechanics behind vying that particular position. Because number one, there are quite a lot of things that need to be done. From even getting the airtime itself is quite a lot of expensive issue. So my other thought could be then young people, we could look for a different strategy altogether. If we are good in mobilizing via online platforms, social media, then we can go that particular direction. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the statistics, young people form a huge part of the population in the country. Then we can use that to capitalize against the other part, which is not so many like young people. And even when you look way back during the 2022 election, majority of the young people did not vote because they felt that those who were voting did not stand for their issues. And again, that meant that they voted, because if you don't vote, you vote indirectly. So for me, is we look for a strategy where young people can mobilize themselves. We can start to have people who are going to help us debunk some of the misconceptions that are made around young people participating in political spaces.
Okay. Do you think that the rate of unemployment will actually affect next year's elections?
Yeah. When I look at it from my perspective, because here, take an example. Mi ni kijana, need to pay rent, need to eat. Then politicians wako hapa wanani aya. They want me to form part of their campaign. They want me to attend their meetings. So I'll be looking at the end of the day, kura ni siri yangu. Then I can still be part of this conversation and be part of rally. But at the end of the day, I know my objective is getting something that will sustain me over and over. So for me, I'm seeing that in terms of them being mobilizers, being part of the cheering, I can call it the cheering squad. For me, young people will very much be part of that because they know there's something at the end of it.
So we do have, do you believe that the youth are actually civically empowered? Because from the way we interact with them here at Tribalist Youth, you'd find that most of them do not know the work that a CS and a PS does. So they don't know who to hold accountable. And without knowing who to hold accountable, how will they vote? Do you think that the youth are civically empowered?
I think the youth are civically empowered, but not all of them. especially those that have access to information, those that come from the urban setting, they are civically empowered. Not all of them, though. But when you go to the rural setting, there's still a big gap, and there's still a lot to be done when you're talking about empowering young people civically. But going back to your other question about whether unemployment will actually influence the outcome of the 2027 election, I think unemployment will influence that in a big way. And that's quite unfortunate because that's the state in which young people are right now, that they do not have jobs, they do not have capital to start their businesses, and they're in a tight position economically. And I think that's what brings them together. But when you talk about kula kwa politician and kura kwa mtendakazi, it's a very dynamic thing because, for example, I see people are mobilized for a meeting for Her Excellency, the governor, to maybe do an empowerment thing. So they call it, because I don't believe that's actually empowerment, but an example. So they do a meeting and you are mobilized and you attend because of the 500 shilling. And it's true, you are hungry, you are in survival mode because you have to find something to eat. But what the content that will be given out during that meeting will actually influence the way you think. Because I saw the governor asking, nyinyi wa mama mmekaa hapa, mtaacha mimi nitukanwe? Mtaacha mimi nitukane tena? And they were saying, no, tutam. And the next time I saw the governor in a meeting with the same crowd of women. And Rigathi Gachagua was speaking about how the government has unleashed alcohol in Mount Kenya. The same women who are being asked by the governor that question, I saw them shouting, ni ya Kiroche, iyo pombe ni ya Kiroche. And the governor was asking them whether they'll allow Kiroche to insult her like that in public. So that is the ripple effect of that meeting. You might just assume that you're seated there, you'll get your 500 and go. But whatever the governor will tell you for that 2 hours you'll be seated there so that you get paid will actually influence the way you speak, the way you think about issues, not unless you're very sober. And I believe if you're very sober and you know what you want, I think you should not go and sell your legitimacy to politicians. That's what I think. So your other question was on what was your second question again? Please repeat it. After the youth will, the economic disempowerment will influence the election, you asked something else. After
Sorry,
that.
you even led me off.
All right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So on to, now that you've actually even brought the topic of tokenism, do you think that it's actually right, or should there be an established system whereby I am going for a rally and I have about I have 10 million and I'm giving, because I hear that State House, when you go to State House, you're given about 10,000 per person, and it's like 2K people are there.
6K.
6K,
yeah.
That's some
like
crazy. Hey. So kuna hiyo au wote wameenda. So shouldn't there be some sort of accountability where the president or the UDA party tells us that hii pesa imetoka hapa na hapa, because kama saa hizi here Mbadi is big on transparency. Ati kampuni munaficha pesa, you have to pay taxes and all that, but hadi waleo hatujaipata transparency on how the SGR was built. The government continues to lie and hide all these things. So do you think that the youth deserve to actually know ni ngapi? Okay, ni 33 million imemwagwa hapa, wewe tuambie utawapi 33 million, because utapeana pesa yako that you
ngumu
hata 10k yako utakubali kupeana tu 100
current circumstance. And I know every time I go to Shags, I get guys saying suniachie yangu niende. So I'm also like narudi. because I understand also the pinch of getting that little money. So dishing out that huge money again brings out an accountability question. Because number one, we ask ourselves, or I always ask myself, is by the time you are dishing that money, umetoa wapi? Yeah. If the political party, most of the time they receive the political party fund that goes to those political parties. But again, we rarely get even the accountability statements or even the, what do we call, Auditor General's report, because they also have to be audited because they get financial money from the government. So clearly mentioning where that money comes from remains to be your good is as good, your guess is as good as mine. Kwenye imetoka. And even recently the State House thing, I was looking at the budgets the State House, just trying to understand. Because kuna watu wameenda huko, they tell us stories about the kind of meals they take. Yeah. Mpaka unajiuliza hii budget inatoka wapi? Yeah. When you look at state house budgets, they are not clear. But again, it tells us how also public funds are being siphoned out. Because again, they have to give tokens to the people, which again now it affects the service delivery that we are receiving as citizens. So why don't they just do the things the way they're supposed to be done, and then hiyo ndio itakuwa ni token? Yeah, I think that's my reflection around that.
I think when you talk about crazy amounts of money being spent by politicians to dish out directly to people, and where does this money come from? It ties it to the question that you asked of whether young people are actually civic conscious. Are they aware? Do they know? Do they have the knowledge about how government processes actually happen or take place? There was a report by AfriCog that tried to highlight how budgeted corruption happens. Because it's not that there's a budget line for a meeting of status year 33 million, but they have to find loopholes within their budget to waingishe hizo vitu zote so that they can be able now to get the money. They're speaking about 800 million going to recurrent expenditure. Like, break that down. How are you using 800 million for recurrent expenditure? We saw the State House asking for an additional 17 billion on their through the supplementary budget. So that's where the money goes. That's how the money is used, through budgeted corruption, that they're stealing legally, and it's very, very hard to pin it back to them. But once you are able to understand how the budget making process works, you're able to understand the analysis of budget documents, then you're able to pin out these gray areas. Like what they were speaking about in the Nakuru budget, bringing it back to home, that the executive is using up to 22 million on legal services, and the county has a county attorney. So what is this that the county attorney cannot do that you have to outsource for legal services? We're speaking about the money bill that Laban whistle blew on the other day that the county assembly was discussing. The governor has a feeding program that she has for ECD schools that she gives porridge. And they were raising the budget from 50 million to 500 million. And Laban decided to just speak about it and rant about it. So that's where the money comes from. It's from budgeted corruption, especially through supplementary budget. And that's why I think Kenyans need to be able to actually understand governance matters even more deeply and be able to fathom governance and especially budgets. And it's not easy because it's something that is done by economists. When you hear Mbadi speak, clearly you can tell that this is one learned friend. So if somebody like that is in charge of a document, then that should tell you that document is not easy to go through. Even the finance bill, when you read the finance bill, it might confuse you. You might not be able to actually grasp everything that is written there. But unfortunately or fortunately, the power of oversight is given back to us. So if there's a weak link between people and oversight, then oversight is not being done in the way that it's supposed to be done. And if we cannot be able to identify and pin out how budgeted corruption works, then I think we cannot be able to hold our leaders to account, and we'll just continue taking 10,000 thinking that Ruto got it from his own pocket. You see the amounts being mentioned that the deputy president is using for his entourage just to move around the country. And you see them going for an economic empowerment event where ni mimi hapa, rafiki yangu Kasudi, wewe pale, Honorable Morathe, and all of us are there contributing. Me, I will give 100,000. Me, I'll give 200,000. And then we divide the money amongst the people that are there. And everybody leaves with 3,000. How have I empowered you, really? How have I changed your life? You spent the whole day listening to me, singing two-term under scorching sun, and then I give you 3 Gs. How have I really impacted your life? And you see, I wouldn't blame the young people because when you say poverty is by design, it's really deeper than we think. That if I give you Nyota Fund today for 25,000, for you to be able to actually tell that I've not helped you, it takes a lot of consciousness and somebody who's really analytical in the way of thinking to be able to determine that yes, you've given me 22,000 and you've not helped me, because they were supposed to be topped up the rest of the grants 22,000 after the Nyota Fund people have come to your business, they've seen that you have a business, and then now they'll give you additional money. how many young people do you think can pull a business in Kenya with the current harsh economic policies and business policies that you
tax
have
regimes.
with 22,000? But for you to convince a Kenyan that hujasaidika.
And I think just to add on, I think sometimes we have to draw a relation between what is affecting us as young people and the current government decisions that are being made. Sometimes for you to understand, and I think young people who are not civic aware, I can say that sometimes you have to bring a relation. For instance, mbona upati dawa in your local hospital? Why is it that the road that you use every day to access your home ni mbaya? Why is it that there's rising cases of insecurity in a particular area? And I think for me, from that particular point, people are able now to bring that relation. They can know what is the opportunity cost. Yeah, allocating the resources of the 17B to State House and get channeled to healthcare system. So that conversations need to happen. And I think that's what always on daily basis when we meet with people, we get to have that conversation. We bring the issue much more closer to home. Sometimes when you speak about the constitution says, what wanaona ni kama, it's...
Yeah.
But when you attach it to a particular issue, now it brings the issue closer home.
And youth mjue that your MP gets market adjustment rates on their salaries. So whenever there is high inflation,
Inapanda.
they are cushioned.
And
Kukiwa na shida, your MP is cushioned. So wewe uko hapo, ujui anafaa kwa parliament, ana make policies to favor you.
Mm-hmm.
And their health insurance allows them for one hospital outside of Kenya.
And it's 10 million, by the way.
Yeah.
It's 10 million.
They cover. They get an opportunity to live in high-end places. I wish one day nizatani watu flip.
Are
Like-
Kenyans ready? Do they know what they're entitled to? I feel like when you talk about systemic barriers and things being shoved down to Kenyans by design, that it's so deep that they don't even understand where the problem comes in. I was reflecting on the day I learned in school about colonization through history, that my history book was written, Kenya became a British protectorate in whatever year that they wrote.
19 or
And
something.
think about that word protectorate. And that's what I was taught, that the British actually protected you up to 1965, when now they saw you have the capacity to handle yourself as a country. And that's how I am fed history as a young Kenyan and as a young person of this country. And it's so deep. Our colonization is so deep that if we have not internalized the depth, it becomes really hard to actually overcome it as Kenyans.
Speaking of that, Angie, I happened to be a meeting with some other guy from education sector. So he mentioned that the education system was very deliberate by the British system. That they only wanted people wanaweza wasaidia just to help them in their farms and nini.
Yeah.
So wako wanakupea more education enye utakuja kuwa outudo ama kuwa outsmart.
Yeah.
So that was how it was designed, I think, around 1910 there.
No room for creativity.
When it was under, that's where again the issue of company comes in. Kenya was a company. It was under, it was British colonial something company. So when you hear even hata saizi, for me I think history repeats itself.
Yeah.
Hata saizi wanasema Kenya is a company of couple of guys. So it's something that was indoctrinated in us way back as the system came in. And I think now it's an opportunity for us to clear that out. We clear that by ensuring that people understand how our new constitution, it's how many years down the line?
More than 10, yeah.
More than
Actually,
10. Close to
2010,
12,
that's 50.
Yeah, around 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we keep on saying it's new, by the way. And I think it's new because we have not gone through
Implemented
each
it.
and every chapter. The constitution is very nice. I think the implementers now but I think we still have that opportunity as us, as young people. Let's understand the structure of government, understand what it intended to achieve, and then we craft a strategy of how to achieve it. And I think I'm very optimistic because every time Mungu amenibariki, I'm a father, so every time I always look nasema the generation to come inafaa kukaaje, wanafaa kuishi aje. So every day I do my daily activities helping people to understand what's at stake, how can we reach there, yeah, and yeah, how to reach there is important. And that can also happen within the political space that we are in. The people that we are electing to go to represent us, are they representing our issues? Or is it our issues are easy? Then when you get to parliament, it turns now to be his or her issue.
Yeah. On matters governance, let us now include women. You've said 15 years since the new constitution that is no longer new. And we have seen an increase in women in parliament. But has there been an increase in how women are treated, how children are treated? Are women issues being pushed in parliament? Because I recently checked. I do not think that my women rep has fronted any bill in parliament.
Who's your women rep?
That Esther Passaris.
Okay.
Yeah, because before coming to Nakuru, I lived in Nairobi. So I voted Esther Passaris in, but I do not see anything that she's done. Last week she was on NTV and she was asked, and she wanted to even blame the men. And then when that did not work, she was like, you guys don't even appreciate the good things that we do. We have done good things, but you people just keep on fronting bad things. So we sit back and look at it. Is the increase in taxpayer money paying out these politicians? Because I believe that the women rep seat was an additional seat, and that is on the back of the taxpayer. So is it really worth adding all these seats for women, and yet we do not see the inclusion? We do not see our issues being fronted. We do not see that none of them has sat down and said that now femicide should be ruled as a crime on its own. And it's something that we see activists kina Njeri Mwigwi out here kila siku wanaonesha the number of women who are dying. I don't think kuna siku yenye page yake haijakuwa updated every single day. But we have women in parliament. So we expected change once these women sat in parliament. But we are yet to see the changes 15 years down the line. Is it something that you think will change over time? Are we the problem? Is it that we elected bad women into power? Or is it that it's a waste of taxpayer money?
I love to hear from Angie first.
From where I sit, I think we cannot have one blanket condemnation for all women leaders and say that they have failed as leaders. I think, as I heard somebody on your podcast say that leadership is actually genderless, that we should not have a double standard, that when a female leader fails, then it's not about the individual, but more about them being a woman or a man. Because I think also we have terrible male leaders who have failed terribly, but we do not say that male leaders have failed us, or we stop putting affirmative action for them into consideration. I think the affirmative action and the women rep seat is quite important, because not only does it look at the matters of women, but it also looks at the matters of young people and also people living with disabilities. And I would say there are women leaders who've done exceptionally well. For example, Crystal Asige has fronted a bill in Parliament on people living with disabilities. And I think that's quite important, and it shows that there's a representation for PWDs at that level, somebody who thinks about their issues. Because I think somebody who is from that category would be able to represent your issues better. Like a PWD or a woman is able to represent the issues of the women better. We also need to speak about women reps that are doing a good job. Like, for example, Njeri Maina, the women rep for Kirinyaga. She does really well in terms of delivering on her mandate. So I think we cannot look at women in general and have one lens for all the women, and we cannot contribute their failure on their leadership, whether they are men or women. And I think the women rep seat is quite important, because we might say that women have been empowered, more girls have gone to school, but when you look at the statistics on the ground, it's actually not the same. And also I think in terms of political parties, I think they also need to give nomination positions based on merit, because this is also contributing to what this narrative that women are not able to perform, because a lot of the time people who are given these positions are people who are loyal to the party. And if you are loyal to the party, it's like there's no reprimanding for whatever you do or say. You look like, you can look at Karen Nyamu. Like Karen Nyamu ni kama, every time we think she can't go lower, she goes lower. She did something, and she was given I don't know the title, Nyakenya, respectable Kikuyu woman. And then the next day she said that the only challenge I can do is siaka. And then the next day the photos of her and I don't know, Otile Brown trending everywhere. So you can see Karen is very confident and settled that she's protected by the party and by the president, because she protects the party, and that's the primary role that she has to do as a nominated leader. So I think we also need to hold political parties to account. Like, for example, in Nakuru County Assembly, there's a wife to the member of parliament of Nakuru Town East, is a nominated member of parliament in Nakuru County Assembly. That should tell you that wasn't on merit, really. Even if you're not so smart, even if you don't understand rocket science, that was based on who do you know. So a lot of people who actually are women leaders get to power, end up in power like that. So I think we also need to interrogate that process, and I think we cannot look at women in general. And I think leadership at the end of the day is genderless. It's not about whether you're a woman or a man. It's about your competence.
I think that's the same reason why the gender ministry is failing.
Yeah.
Because it was given to someone because of political affiliations. The husband died, and then there was a political debt.
Yeah, true. So building up from where Angie has left is probably looking back at the historical maybe injustices around women representation. And I know women, youth, and PWD falls under marginalized group. These are people who have history of being left out of key decisions. And I know in the past we have seen how that affects you. They say when you are not in the table, high chances what is being discussed in the table won't consider your views or your inputs. So for me, the constitution that we have right now is a progressive one. Number one, the drafters of the constitution had a vision. By the time they were bringing in the affirmative action, bringing in all the 47 women representatives, there was a need of ensuring that we have women as part of our decision making, because historically men were the ones dominating these spaces. And by doing that, I think for me it has given opportunity for women to come up to vie for the positions. Apart from the affirmative seats, that is women rep, we're also seeing other women vying with their counterpart men for the MP's position. Because at the end of the day, women representative and the MPs are going to sit the same parliament, the National Assembly. So looking at the bills, but now women are supposed to use women, children, PWD lenses when they look at key decisions that are being made. For instance, budget, how many budgetary allocations are going towards youth programs, women programs within the ministries. So those lenses are supposed to be worn by women at that particular point. But nonetheless, we cannot crucify all the women because of the way she has mentioned, few here and there. Because also men, there are those who are just out of this world in those parliaments. But again, for me, I feel, again, 2027, women might be judged harshly because of those who are in position right now. I think we have a big task of creating public awareness around that this is an individual rather than a seat. So there are others who are out there who are able to do it better, even showcasing those who are doing the best for that particular moment. So to help us when we are doing the decision making, we don't do blanket condemnation to women. So we still have for me, we still have a long way to go to ensure that, number one, we have I can call it, is it adequate representation Number 2, quality of representation within the key decision-making areas and spaces. And number 4, people who are going to look at things with our lenses, the issues that they're supposed to go and present us when they go to Parliament. But I know it's Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah, sure. So between debate or dialogue, which one does Kenya need more?
It's subjective, I would say. Dialogue, of course, is the primary course of action that I want to talk to you and try to show you my perspective and show you empathy and understand you. But like we were on a live the day before yesterday, Gen Z Buddy was hosting a live, and the issue was on the disappearance of children. And somebody said the course of action here is to take care of your child, be a better parent. Somebody from the two-term bandwagon. You see, at such moments now, it's no longer about dialogue. It's now about debate, because I'm in pain. I'm a parent, and I have to show you why it's unsettling that children are getting lost. And when you come and tell me that it's on you as a parent, take better care of your children. So in politics, I think it depends, and it's quite subjective, because the nature of Kenyan politics is quite aggressive and quite rough. You saw Senator Methu going right directly at the president, and the president was seated there, and he's a senator. That should show you that Kenyan politics is quite aggressive, and sometimes dialogue there's no room for dialogue, but I think dialogue is actually the primary course of action.
I think it depends with context. When is dialogue applied and when is the debate? For me, I always believe, because dialogue has an end. There's something at the end of it. Because when we sit in a room, we lock ourselves here in a room, we dialogue. At the end of the day, there's something that we'll agree. Yeah. For debate, for me, is more or less like sharing your best scenario and strategy, how to go about something. And at the end of the day, sometimes you might not agree. You might not have a conclusion to a debate, but rather we leave it hanging as, well, Meshinda. So this one looks better compared to this, but now we don't have, like, how are we going to ensure this works after a debate? But for a dialogue, I think dialogue is always the best strategy to go, as long as the end result of it's something that has an influence on all of us, and it's a positive influence.
Yeah, like the NADCO report, how it was arrived at after a week of dialogue and investment of resources at Bomas, and then 2 years later, nothing has been implemented. So sometimes in Kenya, dialogue really has not.
It depends on who is dialoguing. It could be at political or class level. Again, that one, they'll tend to look at what favors them. Yeah. But when you look at, for instance, allow me to use this as an example, although I know those guys are currently facing a backlash. The Matatu guys. Yeah. For me, dialogue was the best, because now the transport industry was crippling. All of us were walking to work. Literally, some of us stayed at home because we could not move. But again, something has to be done. There's a conversation that has to be kickstart. Plus, again, bei ya mafuta ilikuwa ipungue. Yeah. So when they sat down somewhere, were taken to Mombasa. They went to Mombasa. Tukaambiwa next month. Yeah. So for me, I feel that it's still an output, of these dialogue that we are seeing. The government is listening, the government is agreeing to restructure, not removing, because the guys from Matatu had quite a number of proposals, but again they agreed on a set of things to be done. So for me, dialogue is always for me. I know Angie has a different opinion around that. It doesn't work, but to some extent it works.
I've said the primary course of action is dialogue, but because of the nature of our government, sometimes dialogue, we need more than dialogue. Like what happened during the finance bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've heard what they had to say. kila pesa unapewa hapo nje, unadhani umeenda campaign, umesupport you leader, umepewa 10,000. That is your money. Nani ako na pesa ya kukupea for free? Wewe unapata 1,000 yako in a day na hata kupea na 100 ni ngumu. Huyo unafikiria natoa wapi? The president earns roughly 1 point something million. MP wako 700,000. Na kila time akikuja kwa kijiji, munataka 200 watu 2,000. That money is coming from your pocket. I've been your host, Ashley. See you next time.